I'm Dennis Green from KCCK Radio in Cedar Rapids, and I'm in conversation today with two members from Orchestra Iowa about an upcoming concert. Tim Hankewich, the musical director of Orchestra Iowa, of course, is a regular guest on KCCK, and Ann Harris Carter, who is a member of the board of Orchestra Iowa. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Talking today about a special and unique concert coming up, 7 Words of the Unarmed. And Tim, let's start with you and tell me just a little bit about this piece, which is coming up on your concert, which will be on the 23rd and 24th of April with Orchestra Iowa.
Right. Not all concerts are created equally. This is, I think, our most important concert that we've performed since I've been here. There are pieces that are both in the realms of entertainment, and then there are pieces that are also art. And where art transcends entertainment is when it holds up a mirror to us in our own culture, and it exposes the good and the bad and the ugly about our societies. And hopefully it's intended to tweak our conscience so our better angels do better. And 3 years ago, or maybe it's even 4 years now, I lose track with the pandemic. We knew that last year was supposed to be a Beethoven season. And I knew that we were going to have to play, we had to play Beethoven's Ninth. I mean, that is his great work. But as I was putting together this program, Anne forwarded an article to me and introduced a piece to me, the 7 Last Words of the Unarmed, that just absolutely shook me to my core. And I realized the two pieces separated by 250 years are about the exact same thing. And I knew we had to perform this. And it's such a powerful work. It's so gorgeous. It is a masterwork of our time. And I am just thrilled that I have this opportunity to perform it in this context.
The piece was composed in, I think, 2015 by a composer named Joel Thompson, and these 7 words that we speak of are words that all of us have heard in the news media over the last several years. Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, saying, I don't have a gun, stop shooting. George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin, Trayvon Martin's words are in this, and 5 other, I can't breathe.
Eric Gardner.
Eric Gardner, yep. Yeah. And based on the Haydn's piece,
right? There is
sort of, kind of,
yeah, sort of, kind of. For the choral enthusiasts out there, there is a work by Haydn called "The 7 Last Words of Christ," which does something similar. And of course, so there's a religiosity about this, about that's or a sanctity about this piece that is absolutely touching and poignant.
All of these, of course, are actual quotes from African-American people who were killed by either police or some sort of authority figure in situations that that we've now come to know, unfortunately, as too familiar. And you kind of brought this piece to Tim. You heard it for the very first time just a couple of days after George Floyd's murder in Minneapolis.
That's right. I can still see myself. I mean, like many people, I listen to music when I go to bed. For me, it's Iowa Public Radio, and there was an overnight program, Music Through the Night, where the host played this composition, 7 Last Words of the Unarmed. What made it distinct was not only the fact that that was during the aftermath of George Floyd's murder, but this host was right there in the Twin Cities.
It was a Minnesota Public Radio program.
Exactly, a nationally syndicated program, but aired out of Minneapolis. And what was different for me is this host is black, former host now. He's Garrett McQueen, has a podcast and is doing some other things. But I've grown up listening to public radio. I mean, since I was in junior high school, I literally would get the program in the mail where they would list out what was going to be played, and I'd highlight, the pieces that I wanted to listen to. So that I'm dating myself, but the point is I'm very familiar with classical music and public radio, and this was the first time that I had even heard a black host. And then to hear this song, my heart was just just wrenching because not only about what was happening in Minnesota and really struggling with the images that we were seeing, and by that time the fire and the protests that were becoming violent and deadly, but I was also thinking about the death of Ahmad Aubry, which had happened a few months earlier in Georgia. And that was poignant to me because I have a son who's in his mid-20s, who at the time was in rural Indiana, southern Indiana, and made a comment to me as we were talking about Ahmad Aubry, Mom, I go running around here. Mm-hmm. And I'll always remember those words. And some parents, most parents, I think, can relate to what it means to be concerned about the well-being of your children. As a Black parent of Black children, I think sometimes my concerns go into a realm that others may not expect. I don't feel like I said that quite right, but
no, that makes it makes perfect sense. As as a white man with two sons, I had many conversations with my kids when they were growing up. Okay, if you get stopped for speeding, just be polite to the officer. Do whatever they ask, and and if you get a ticket, you get a ticket. It'll be fine. I never had to have the conversation that said if you get stopped by an officer, be so careful because you may not survive the experience.
And it gets scary because we have no control, right? And as much as I am grateful for the privilege that I have in my life and the experiences of my children, when that same son helped his older sister drive from Ohio to California as she was relocating, they plotted a northern route. And they planned their stops in large enough metropolitan areas, so just to be extra safe. And we may remember the name Sandra Bland, who was driving in Texas and had a stop that didn't go so well. So as I imagine myself listening to that piece now, I feel like I was wailing and just crying. And I don't think I was actually crying, but that was the feeling of just release. Here's somebody who is there and understands what is happening and is helping me to grieve and process. So that was my first experience. And I think of it as a beautiful piece.
That's a hard. What word do you put to that?
It's a very powerful piece for sure, and some of the melodies and harmonies are absolutely beautiful. But it's also a very difficult piece, and may even be difficult for some people to hear in concert.
Have you listened to the piece subsequent to your first exposure?
Well, I figured I probably better before I come in to talk to you. So yes, I have. And what's interesting for me, I was a music major in college. Right. And so, but didn't study choral music or opera as much. So I'm more familiar with instrumental music. And I think about, tempo and instrumentation and, I know, and even just in layman terms, some music makes me feel happy, some music makes me feel sad, or I have a whole playlist of second movements that tend to be kind of melancholy. And so that's just sort of the way music speaks to me. This is the first time, and I've been racking my brain, that a piece has really spoken to me on so many levels. The musicality, for sure, particularly as after the fact I read about some of the choices that Joel Thompson made, but also just wanting to process those words. And then there's the whole current events thing, because many of those words I do remember hearing when they were played out in the news cycle. And so that's just another whole dynamic to this.
Tim, same question for you. Sure. A little bit, because as the conductor and leader of the orchestra, I'm sure that a lot of times, I'm not going to say that you're mechanical in what you do, but I'm sure that a lot of your focus is on making sure the music is played the way it should be played.
Correct.
And
Yep.
you don't always have time, certainly during the performance, to think about the emotional impact that parts of it make. But
True.
so tell me
Yeah.
about that. I'm curious about that tension and balance as the music is being performed.
That's interesting because as a performer, you have to have a little bit of detachment because if you get completely immersed into the emotion of the moment, you might not be able to actually carry on. This piece is so powerful, and the words themselves are incredibly powerful, and the way Joel Thompson uses them, highlighting certain words in the phrase to heighten the power. And I'm particularly moved by Amadou Diallo's last words, which were, "Mom, I'm going to college. Mom, I'm going to college. Mom, I'm going." It's incredible. Just the way the text unfolds is incredibly powerful. But the musical underpinning, you see, this is when I heard this, I immediately knew it was a masterwork of our time because it's not just the message, it's the way it's crafted to really make people think. And that's what art is supposed to do.
The piece is for orchestra and chorus, and we have soloists that we'll talk about in a minute. But the choir that you have put together for this is just about possibly the largest choral group I think that Iowa has ever seen.
Yeah. Already, Ed Carr, our operations director, he and I are in constant dialogue because we have more choristers than we have chairs. So we're going to have to figure out how to make this concert work. Yes, we have a massed choir consisting of college choruses from Coe College, Kirkwood College, Mount Mercy, Cornell as well, and Concert Chorale. So all of them together, we're going to have 200 plus people on stage performing this incredible concert. And just the visual nature of it, the musical nature, the message behind it. As I said earlier, this is easily the most important concert we've done since I've been here.
And you're bringing in 4 soloists for this, all African American, not surprisingly.
Yes, the piece doesn't. The 4 last songs, the 4 last words of the Unarmed doesn't require a soloist except in one movement, but we do require a quartet for the Beethoven, and so they'll be joining us in the second half of the program to sing the Ode to Joy.
And how did you go about recruiting the soloists? Because they're
amazing.
Yeah, their bios are just outstanding.
So A. Renee, she goes by A. Renee. A stands for Ashley, but she goes by A. Renee. She's, I think, the most interesting character because she is a spectacular soprano who does a lot of crossover work. She does a lot of R&B. But what she does is she uses her art, music, and singing to do a lot of work that Anne has been known to do, and a lot of facilitation work, and to using the arts to empower people and to open these kind of dialogues. This concert in many ways is like tailor-made for her. Taylor Raven, our alto, she's been all over the country. She's sung with Marin Alsop in the Baltimore Symphony and the Cincinnati Symphony and Gustavo Dudamel in Los Angeles, and she's just an incredible talent. And our tenor, Chauncey Packer, where hasn't he sung? He's sung at the Met, he's sung at La Scala, Des Moines, he's even performed there as well.
He
as New Orleans.
also originated one of the roles in Terence Blanchard's opera. Terence Blanchard, of course, well-known jazz player who just premiered "Fire Shut Up My Bones" at the Met in New York. So he was I think, possibly originated the first person ever to sing those parts.
I love this program because not only has a crossover message, but also the talent. The soloists that we're bringing have this incredible breadth of artistic expression, and that's why I'm so thrilled. And then our bass, James Martin, also has appeared with the Chicago Lyric. He's sung with the Concertgebouw in Amsterdam, St. Louis. I mean, we've got some real first-rate soloists who will be gracing our stage, and I'm just so proud to be there as part of it.
You said earlier that you thought that this, the 7 Words in the Unarmed, paired with Beethoven's Ninth so well because of there are connections and similarities in their messages. For those who aren't familiar with that, expound on that a little bit.
Okay, well, bear with me because I think most people have forgotten what Beethoven 9 is really about. So the poem Schiller's Ode to Joy was one of the most popular texts in the late 1700s. And it was a sort of a monument to the Enlightenment. Now, if you want to know what the Enlightenment is really all about, read the Declaration.
Go to college.
Well, no,
Yeah.
no. Oh, even better, read the Declaration of Independence and the American Constitution. It is a distillation of all that the Enlightenment stood for. And Schiller's Ode to Joy was one of these texts that became really popular. And this is why people had, at the time, a love-hate relationship with Napoleon, because as he was conquering their countries, which nobody likes, he also, early on in his career, held out the promise to this thing called democracy, because he was changing the world order away from the divine right of kings. He then abandoned and betrayed those ideals by declaring himself emperor. But after he was finally defeated, the old regime returned, and people lost their individual freedoms and individual rights, and Schiller's Ode to Joy became illegal. It was banned. And so when in the 1820s, when Beethoven wrote this symphony, it was a work of defiance because the text was banned. And it had these dangerous ideas like brotherhood, justice, equality, democracy. And that is what Beethoven's Ninth Symphony is all about. So in many ways, the seven last words of the Unarmed and Beethoven's Ninth Symphony are about the exact same thing. They just happen to be 250 years apart.
And also proving how little ground we've made in the last 250 years.
It is a human story
too.
that sadly is being told time and time and time and time again.
The concert is Seven Words of the Unarmed in Beethoven's Ninth with Orchestra Iowa. You're performing it twice, once at the Paramount Theater on Saturday, April 23rd, and you're going to be at Hankewich for the Sunday performance.
Yes, we need the stage size.
Needed the stage size.
Yeah, April 24th, Sunday 20 at 2:30. Yeah, hope to see you there.
Now, I know that you'll have some conversations, your insights before each concert.
Yes.
Will you talk a little bit about this? Are we planning anything else in the community to talk about talk about this piece and these times?
We are in the process of developing some opportunities for community conversations in the month following the concerts. So that's still in development, but the idea is we want to give people an opportunity to, have this common experience with the music, sort of a common memory, and then talk about, just from a musicality standpoint, how did it make you feel? What do the words mean to you? And how does this relate to what's happening even here in our community or in the world around us?
I love that because so often it seems like when we, are in the run-up to an event like this, all of the events associated with it come before
Right.
the concert itself. And then we leave and we're like, okay, I have to talk about this with someone. Where can I talk?
Yeah.
Where can I talk with someone about this? So I think it's great that the concert really will be the beginning of conversations about the effect that
that's
this
right.
has on us.
Yep.
April 23rd and 24th with Orchestra Iowa. Tickets available in the usual locations, which are your box office, by phone, and also at the website.
orchestraiowa.org or artsiowa.com.
Well, congratulations to you and Orchestra Iowa, Tim, for seeing this and seeing this connection and why it needed to be done, why it needs to be done now, and also finding a way to have this conversation in our community that also is so stunning from a musical perspective. And Ann, thank you for bringing it to us.
Thank you so much, Dennis. And thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you both for being here.